Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bengaluru International Short Film Festival 2021. This is our 11th edition, and today we have a masterclass with Prashant Udupa, who will be talking about his platform Scrite. Just before I bring Prashant on the screen, I would just like to give a brief. Prashant loves films and, of course, prefers to watch on big screen like all of us. That is the reason he started Terryflex with his brother, which create spaces for private theatrical experiences. Of course, like any Bangalorean, he's a techie. He's in the C++ framework. He when I think if I remember from my discussions with him, he started got interested in screenplays few years ago, and I think pandemic gave him a big opportunity to sit and build Scribe. So in the last 18 months, he has spoken to a lot of filmmakers and script writers to understand how they write, and he has come up with this wonderful platform called Scribe. So let's hear from the man himself, Prashant Udupa. Let me bring him on screen. Hi,
Hi,
Prashant.
hello. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. This is my first time uh, as a presenter in Bangalore International Short Film Festival. So thanks very much for the opportunity.
No, we love having you, and very important. You have created this. I know it's an open platform right now, and it's helping a lot of filmmakers. I understand a lot of people are using it. Maybe we'll ask more questions about it. I just want you to understand more about Scribe. So if you can, do a live presentation of Scribe and put in a project there and start explaining how to use Scribe, it'll be wonderful. So the platform is
Sure,
all, so the screen is all yours. Please go ahead.
sure. Would love to. Just okay. So I guess you're seeing my screen, right? Uh, I think Anand. I spoke to you yesterday, and what I want to do here is want to make use of the next 1 hour to give a very uh, quick tour of the product. I'm not a screenwriter myself, although I try to write screenplays for my own personal entertainment. I'm more of a software developer than a screenwriter. So what I want to do is give a overview of the product, and then, like Anand said, I want to go through a live story building exercise with Scribe. So when you install Scribe, and to install Scribe, you just have to visit our website scribe.io, and right, and then this is a free and open source product. We have the installers available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. You just head to the downloads and you download it. And when you install Scribe, so this is the screen that you see. So what you'll see right off the bat is this. There are 4 tabs on the top. This is the screenplay tab. This is where you type your screenplay, and this is the structure tab. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on. This is where you can design your story structures, and then this is the notebook tab. This is where you capture your research. And finally, we have this interesting tab called as Scrited. All these script to screen videos that people make, where you have the screenplay scrolling and the film playing on the top. So you can prepare those kind of videos for your own films in this tab if you want to. So what I'll do now is, you know, too much of theory. I'll just get straight into writing a screenplay and explain things that come along. Feel free to ask questions. We'll take as many questions. And Anand's, I think, intent is also to keep this very interactive. So the first thing you'll notice in Scribe is that you launch Scribe, you see the screenplay tab, and there's this page, but there's no place to write. If you open Final Draft or Celtex or anything, you get a page like you get in Microsoft Word, for example. Straight away you get to write stuff, but that's not what you can do in Scribe, because Scribe is something we call as a scene-centric UI and not a page-centric UI. So we don't give pages as the UI construct in Scribe. It's a scene. So the first thing you have to do is create a brand new scene. This is very distinct from all the other apps, right? So you create a scene, and then you get this box here. This is where you type your scenes. And you see a bunch of fields here, right? So there's a scene heading area. This is where you write the slug line. The slug line is interior, exterior, location, and day, night, evening, and whatever. And then you have the scene number. By default, Scribe will generate incremental scene numbers. You're going to get 1, 2, 3. I mean, it's just going to generate scene numbers automatically. But if I want, I can go and change it. For example, I can say this is 1A, in which case this becomes 1, 1A, and 2, and so on. Otherwise, it's just an automatic scene numbering mechanism. And then we'll see something called as characters. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. And this is where you can type the synopsis of your scene. So a lot of writers, they want to first outline their story first before they get to write anything. So what I'm going to do is, I think Friends is popular, and I just want to use one scene from Friends and just write a screenplay for that. So Ross, visits his lawyer's office when he wants to get his marriage annulled, right? Right. So this is my scene heading, and then I'm going to write my first action line. You can tell that I've kept some content on the other monitor so that we don't waste time typing a lot of stuff. So this is my action thing. Now, the screenplay is a kind of writing which is very rigorous when it comes to formatting. There's a very specific way in which writers are expected to format their text. So slugline is one kind of formatting. And within this content area here, you type your action paragraphs, your dialogues, your character names, and your transitions. This is where you're going to type all of those paragraphs. So this is an action paragraph. And if you look on the top here, in this toolbar, it gives you buttons to help you move between different paragraphs types. So this is the action paragraph. And now I want to, let's say, write some dialogues here. So I can click on this button to move to the character paragraph type, give the name of the character, and then write the dialogue of the character. Or I can just hit the tab key. Scribe will recognize that you're most likely going to write a character paragraph now, right? And then when I hit return, it's going to switch to the dialogue paragraph type. Right? You remember this scene? It's a very funny scene, right? Yes. And then as you see, I just sort of keep typing, and Scribe guesses that I'm probably going to write another dialogue, another character, and so on. And whenever I'm in character paragraph format type, it'll give me a completion. Right? And then Ross is his second in 2 years, third overall, right? So this way I can go on writing all of my character names. Now, one thing that's very unique to Scribe that's not there in almost every other screenwriting app that I have sampled is this thing that you see here. Can you see, as I started writing dialogues, Scribe started collecting all of the character names in the scenes. Now, if I type, let's say, for example, somehow Anand and I also made it into the scene. So if I say Anand, and can you see Anand's name showed up in the scene here, right? Say something, and then Prashant says something, right? This is something very interesting in Scribe in the sense that it keeps collecting all people, all the characters who show up in a scene. And this is very important because, see, eventually, once you finish writing your screenplay, you want to generate your character reports, your dialogue, dialogue sheets, and schedule sheets, and all of that. So this knowledge that Scribe has to know who is in what scene is a very important piece of data that you can use during pre-production later on. And I'm going to show you some live use cases of that in just a bit. So this is the most basic thing. Now, once I finish, I want to go add a transition paragraph. I can go here and say cut to, and that's it. So this is my one scene, and then I can write my second scene and third scene and so on. There is this button here on the left, which I can click, and it's going to pull out a list of all of the scenes in my screenplay. So this way I can rapidly switch between any of the scenes in my screenplay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to import an existing screenplay, right? So that we don't have to type this whole thing. So, and you'll get to see what a big screenplay would typically look like. So I'm going to import a screenplay, and you'll notice that this particular screenplay has a lot of scenes, right? And Scribe knows who is present in what scene. And this is what the entire screenplay looks like when you load it in Scrite. So I'm going to pause at this point and see if there are questions, if there's something that Anand you want to add in.
Yeah, I want to see even for my understanding. See, even before
Yeah.
I start writing a screenplay, I have a story in mind. Is
Yes.
there a place where I can just write the story because I'll be think my story does not come as a screenplay in my mind, right? I just want to
Yes.
type in.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good. So, what happens is, I think everybody starts off with a plot, an idea in their mind,
Right.
and when they have a when they're still working on grasping the story, they most likely don't go to any screenwriting app. They work on Notepad or Word or Google Docs or something because that's where they are kind of pouring together all of their ideas. They come to screenwriting when they have a rough awareness of the story already. Now,
Mm,
this is the tab you will go to if you are in a place where you want to straight away get into writing scenes, right?
mm, mm,
But if you are, this is the second thing that I want to talk about. Now, if you are somebody who wants to just plot your, let me just open the, okay. So if you're someone who just wants to plot your story before writing all of your scenes. You just want to get a rough imagery of your story. Now, there's this video that I want to say. This was the inspiration for Scrite. I think everybody would have watched this, right? So Christopher Nolan
mm.
is breaking
Yeah,
down the structure of Memento. So he draws this thing on the board,
yeah,
and he's saying that this is how I imagined it. There are two timelines, and I'm picking up different elements from different timelines. One is a black and white track, and the other is a color track. And then finally, it meets at the end. So when I watched this video, what I felt was, God, there should be an app that would help me to visually plot my story shapes like that. So that was the
right.
genesis of the idea of Scrite itself, right? Now, let's say I want to plot this story, and I recently used this in a video that we put together for our website. So let's say I want to write a simple short story, 3 characters, and for each of these characters there is a before and after. So for example, this one character is a girl. uh, Young girl struggles to finish her math homework. She simply cannot solve math problems when she's sitting in
Mm,
front of a textbook, right? It's a torturous experience for her. But the same young girl, when she does carpentry, she's a genius. She's able to solve geometry and measurements and all of that. She's doing great. But she can't do it when you give her a textbook. So that's one
mm,
story. The other story, young guy, computer lab, writing an exam. He simply can't make out head or tail of the program that he's coding. He
mm,
is struggling to finish his computer lab. But the same guy, years later, as a software developer in the company, doing a great job.
yeah.
Another guy struggles to buy heart poems and tell it in school, but years later he's an actor, and on the theater he's like telling dialogues effortlessly. So
Mm,
let's say the point of the story is it's not the activity itself; it's the reason for why you engage in the activity that matters, right? So let's say that's the story that I want to tell. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to first get my story idea right. So this is what I would do in Scribe. So I will head to uh, I'll head to this page, this tab here that's called Structure tab. This is where I can plot my idea. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create one scene, and this is the before scene, for the girl. Like this is where she's struggling to do her math homework. We're not writing the scene; we're just writing an idea here, right?
right.
And I'm going to take another scene and then say this is the after scene.
Mm,
She is doing great in carpentry, right? Now, because we have multiple characters in our story, what I want to do is I want to color code them. So I'm going to say all of the girls track of stories. I'm going to color code it as red, or pink, or whatever, right? So I'm going to add a few more scenes here and say this is my before scene college boy to do lab programs. And then this is the after scene of the college boy, right? And doing great at work, right? So this is I'm just plotting rough ideas. There's no And I know that it looks like a longish process at this point, but just bear with me for a second. There's simpler ways to do this. Before scene of actor struggling to tell a poem, and then I have after scene of actor. uh, does great on the stage, right? So I've just rough ideas right now. I've just scratched them around, placed it in whatever places. Now, now once I've got this thing, got this so far, I say, okay, now I'm able to look at this, zoom out, and say, okay, I have like three tracks going on, three characters, and there are three tracks. So what I can now do is I can actually, there are two things. One is I can pull this thing out and I can start creating the actual scene content for individual scenes. So for example, this is the uh, scene. Let's say I'm writing this scene of her. She's at home, right? And then she's struggling to do her homework and whatever. So this is my after scene. So this may not happen over a single setting. So I might just put my story design on one day, and then come back and do everything else on some other day. So I'm going to go and this is my, oops. This is my carpentry scene. I'm going to go here and say this is carpentry. Next. Right? So like this, assume that I've filled up the other scene. So I'm going to keep working on this. And once I've got all of my scenes crafted out, I want to now sequence them. So what I'll say is, okay, so first I want to show the before of the girl, and then I'll show the after of the girl, right? Girl's track. And then I want to show before of the college boy. And then, so the way I'm doing this is I'm just clicking on this button here. Can you see there's this thing called as plus here, right?
Yeah.
So what this does, it's going to include the scene into my timeline. This is the timeline. So this is where I create all of the raw materials. This is where I can type out the scene details, and this is where I can piece them together into a timeline. So pretty much like video editing apps, you import your videos to your media pool, and then you cut and pull them onto a timeline, sequence them. And on the other side, you apply your filters and all of that. So I'm going to have this, and then add this, and then add this. So now what I have here is I've sequenced my story in this fashion, right?
Yeah.
So you can clearly see the sequence here. Now, this is one story, and this is my whole screenplay. So now if I switch to the screenplay tab, that's the screenplay that I'm currently looking at. All of my 6 scenes that I created there and pieced them together are here. So instead of reducing screenwriting to this process of writing one scene after another in a long, page after page after page, what we are trying to do with Scrite is, can people just work on distinct ideas and then figure out how they're going to, pull these things together, how they're going to mash it up into something. Now, it's possible that I want to tell all of the before scenarios first, and then all of the after scenarios later, because I want to leave the audience with a very, all is lost kind of an experience before I show them the good things, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to re-sequence these scenes. Okay. So now what happens is the screenplays looks different. So you have the before things going on first, and then the after scenes going on next. So this way, we are not writing pieces of text that you have to copy paste. I saw this video where Raj DK is sharing his screen and he's explaining how they kind of put together Family Man, and the title bar of his window, it said Family Man latest test. So I'm sure there was a latest test, and then it became test like that. So you don't have to do that here, right? So you can have all of your raw materials in one place, just mix and match as you move along. So this is the idea that we have in Scrite. So if I wanted to do what Christopher Nolan did, for example, in his Memento, I can just create these index cards and then sequence them in that order. In fact, in one of the stories that I wrote, let me just See if I can open that. So if you have something to add, please go ahead while I'm pulling out a file.
No, I just want to ask: is this a multi-user platform where I can have couple of writers use it at the same time?
Yeah, no, not yet, but we want to get there eventually. So right now, so let me open this, and I'll keep this open while we talk about it. Right. So it's not yet multi-platform, right?
Okay.
Uh, what
No, no.
we
Okay.
what
So multi-platform.
multi-user. Yeah. It's
Ah,
not yet multi-user. So what our users are currently doing is they create these files and they put it on Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive or wherever, and they sync these folders with their computers.
hmm.
So when one person is using that file will be locked, other people will not be able to use the file.
Okay.
So they can work on the same document, but not collaboratively edit in real time. At some point, we want to do that. We
Yeah.
want to do collaborative real-time editing as well, because we want to do beyond just collaborative editing on the scene level. We
Right.
want to index cards and notebook and a lot of places. So that's what we want to do. So there are some questions. I think we can.
Yeah.
Good time to take
So
it. Okay.
I'll ask Vinay's question first. So we'll bring him. Vinay is
Okay. So
asking.
are there ready to use templates? Yes. So there are ready to use structured templates. For example, if I click on this new button, you can see that there are some ready to use structured templates. I think a
Hmm.
very famous template is Save the Cat. So this book shows up in every screenwriter's library, right? So if you
Yeah.
want to build your story on top of Save the Cat, so what it does is it gives you
Hmm.
your 40 index cards. This is
Hmm.
the opening image and the setup and theme stated and all of that. So it's already giving you a ready-made mold, so to speak, and you can pour your story into it. So there is a
Hmm.
structured template available that you can make use of. Yes.
What about hand-drawn storyboard? Is that a possibility in Scribe? Can I put?
Yes, good question. So that's one of the pending feature requests. So we want to do that. So there is a another open source product called a storyboarder. So at some point we want to see if we can somehow include that within Scribe.
Right.
If not, we want to build our own layers for short division and storyboarding as well. But it's not there yet.
Okay. Okay. Nikhil has a question. He's asking, what about autocorrect and spell check?
Good. So we don't have autocorrect.
Hmm.
Somehow it turns out, uh, for a lot of people, autocorrect can be annoying.
For me, it's a nonsense.
Yeah. So if I can tell, an embarrassing incident. So what happened is,
Hmm.
I once sent a message to a friend of mine. She was continuously calling me, and I kept cutting her call. And then I sent a message to her, and I said, "Sorry, can't take your call. I'm doing a live demo," because I was doing a live demo.
Hmm.
What went to her was, "I'm doing a love demo." And it was a lot of effort to explain to her that I'm not that kind of a person. So I hate autocorrect, but spell check is something that I
Maybe
can
the truth came out, Prashant.
do. No, I was doing a demo for you that day. So we were definitely not doing any other demo that day. Anyway, but that's something, right? So I hate autocorrect, but I am spell check is something that's really useful. So you can, for example, enable spell check in settings,
Yeah.
right? And then if you make a mistake,
Hmm.
it is going to show that to you, right? So it's a mistake. So I can now
Okay.
right click and correct it. So that's also available.
Is English the only language it supports right now, or?
No. We have the ability to write in local, a lot of languages. So we have like 11 Indian languages that are
Oh,
supported.
nice,
So
nice, nice.
I'm going to show you quickly how to do that as well. Should we take other
No,
questions before we?
we'll come back to those questions. I think you can go forward. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say you want to type in Kannada, for example. So all you have to do is go here and click on Kannada, right?
Hmm.
And then what Scribe does is it will transliterate every
Okay.
single word that you write into Kannada.
No, that's
So
brilliant. Yeah.
And for example, uh, there's some times where the transliteration, this is a static transliteration mechanism. It's not machine learning based like Google Translate and all of those kits
Right.
are. When, in fact, I think our mutual friend Abhay Simha, he was director Abhay Simha. He was the one who first suggested to me that you've got to bake in some sort of local languages into the app. So that's when I put, and then at that time, the concern was maybe writers don't want to be hooked up to the internet while they're typing because they're very sensitive. They'll sit in far off places and all of that. So we didn't want to build something that would require an internet connection. And I didn't know how transliteration, machine learning things are written. So we put together very simple static transliteration mechanism. So in this, for example, uh, uh, for example, this is not what we wanted, right? So I wanted to type Tindiddu, and nobody writes Tindiddu like this.
Yeah.
This is not the right way to write Tindiddu. So and this is the problem with. So the reason is naturally I'll say Tindiddu. So this appears right, but now when I hit the space, it actually transliterates. Not in the right way. So this is not the way we should write Tindiddu.
Correct.
So the reason why this happens is because the static transliterator, works on a table. So you can pull this table out here and take a look at what English letters will go to what Kannada transliteration text. So I can now say, right? So this is correct because it says for the am aksharakke m anta badibeku. N anta badibeku. So this is one unfortunate thing. I think at some point Google now has this framework called as Mural, and we want to integrate that so that these kind of bloopers don't happen while you're typing in local Indian languages. But
you've done the same thing for all languages which you have integrated, right?
Yes, we have the same thing for also. For example, I'm going to go to Malayalam. I don't understand Malayalam, but we do have it because the basic thing is the same. The construct is same,
right?
From software point of view. Right. So, but what we have is some people, they said, they already use Baraha. They use some, input methods on their operating system. So, for example, in Mac, you can go to keyboard and then go to input sources. And here you can add custom keyboards. So I've added a custom keyboard for Hindi. This is a phonetic keyboard. So what I can now do is go to Scrite here and then go to transliteration, and in Hindi I can select the Apple's transliteration, Apple's input source. Now what happens is whenever I switch to Hindi, it will automatically switch to Hindi even in I'm not sure if this is
okay. Yeah.
Even in the operating system, right? So now I can simply say,
nice. Oh, very cool.
So on Windows, you have input methods available for Kannada, for a lot of languages. So you can add these languages to your keyboard input sources and then map them on Scrite. So that way, whenever you switch to that language, you'll be able to use that. The other interesting thing about Scrite is this. I gave this session at a SWA event last year, and one of the writers there gave me this brilliant idea. He said, Prashant, what happens is we write our screenplay where typically we write the dialogues in Hindi, everything else is in English. Right? None of us write the whole thing in Hindi. So what we did was a simple shorthand. So you can go to settings and go to formatting rules, select dialogue and say, all of my dialogues are going to be in Hindi.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So now what happens is I can type my action text. This is in English. This is also in English. The instant I hit the enter key and switch into dialogue, notice that Scrite automatically switched to Hindi.
Very nice. Okay.
Now we're back to English.
Yeah. Very nice. Okay.
Right. So this way, you don't have to keep switching languages in the status bar or wherever else. It will automatically take care of things. The other thing is, if you are a kind of person who constantly switch between, let's say, English and Kannada, so you can say this is English and Kannada, the only active languages. I'm going to use the F10 key to switch between the active languages. So when I say F10, it's in English, and then F10 it's in Kannada, and then F10 it's in English, and F10 it's in Kannada, like that. So it keeps switching.
That's on Windows, right? Or it's on common on it.
It's on this app works exactly the same way on Windows, Linux, and Mac.
Okay. Because my when I put F10 on my Mac, it will go to mute. So.
Right. Yeah. So I have changed that. I've mapped it and said a function key plus.
Got it.
Yeah, then it will work. Otherwise, it won't. But yeah, that is true.
Let's take a few questions, maybe.
Sure.
So,
can I import and export to other platforms? Vinay Kashyap. Thanks for asking this question. It's a very important question because you probably have written screenplays in other platforms already, right? So I have something in Final Draft, so I can just drag and drop the Final Draft file. It'll import it. Now this is in Scrite. Of course, it's not. If I make any changes, it will not get saved back into the Final Draft file. I'll have to save it explicitly as a Scrite file or export it. Like this, we also support the Fountain file format. So if anything is written, Fountain is a markdown file. I think Keltex supports exporting your screenplays to Fountain. So you can also drag and drop Fountain files and it's going to import that. But a catch is this, none of the apps get the Fountain import right because it's so difficult, it's confusing. The formatting hints are not very clear. So Scrite tries to best guess while importing from Fountain, but you will probably still have to, for example, see, it says on Will and Sandra. This is not supposed to be a character paragraph, right? It's supposed to be a short.
Yeah.
Right. So this is supposed to be a short. So you'll have to go and manually fix some of these import issues.
Understood.
Otherwise, it will import. So we support Final Draft import. We support Fountain import. These are the two. I think between these two, it will cover a lot. Most apps support exporting to these anyway. Now, if you want to export something into Final Draft, so I'm going to open one of my screenplays. So remember, I told you I write screenplays for my own personal entertainment. So this is one of them. So I'm going to make the font really small so that I'm not embarrassed about this later. Anyway, so I can now go to export and I can select Final Draft, for example, and it is going to export, right, to Final Draft. So this is now going to export to Final Draft. So if I now double click on this, the entire screenplay is in Final Draft. The interesting thing is this, we also, while exporting, ensure that languages are explicitly marked as such so that Final Draft can recognize your custom languages as custom languages. Otherwise, in a lot of other apps I've seen, when you export Hindi, Kannada, whatever to Final Draft, garbage shows up when you open the same file in Final Draft. So we support exporting to Final Draft, to Fountain, HTML, open document format so that you can open it in OpenOffice and Word and so on, or just simple text file as well. Of course, PDF is also supported. One thing I just want to, I think I opened this before when we talked about structure, so I'll just explain this. This is a story that I tried to plot which has 3 tracks. So there's one track represented by these orange cards. This is about 2 characters, Nagi Manja. This is another track. All the purple cards is another track, which is for 2 more characters, Rakesh Ramya. And then this blue cards, 2 more tracks for Maruti and his wife. Now, while I was plotting this story, I kind of just laid together the orange tracks. And every once in a while, when I felt like I need to make a note for the purple track, I would create an index card, but not really work on it. So once I finished placing them and then I mixed and matched, that's how I got my multi-track screenplay and I was able to visualize it. Now you can imagine how something like this is useful if you're doing multiple timelines, non-linear screenplay. So you can kind of flow between them. Yeah.
So following the same question, I think Shailesh is asking, is it compatible with Avid Script Sync?
Shailesh, I'm sorry, I don't really know what Avid Script Sync is. I'll have to read up about that and get back to you. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is. I haven't researched that. I think what happened is when I discovered that I wanted to write a screenwriting app, the only app that I knew at that time was Finagraph because they have so much of marketing,
Yeah.
right? And then I discovered Celtex because I spoke with director Adarsh, and Adarsh uses Celtex a lot. And then there's a few other writers who were using Writer Duet, and then this Scrivener was there, Fade in Pro was there. So I used a lot of these apps. And then try to see what's not there in them that we can solve in Scribe. But I'm going
Nice.
to research about this.
One more question we have is, can we place image or video clips or anything related to our scripts?
Super, very good question. You can place image, video clips, whatever in the structure canvas, right? For example, let's say for whatever reason, uh, this thing
Yeah,
makes sense.
reference photos or
Yeah,
reference shots.
yeah. You can just drag and drop it, put it on your structure canvas. It will just
Super.
stay there.
Okay.
You can insert links. There's this add annotation thing here where you can insert a website link, a horizontal line, vertical line, rectangle, image, oval, anything. So that way you can kind of spice it up, make it more meaningful structure wise. But we don't yet have a way of adding images or videos directly to the scene area itself. We want the place where you write the scenes to be pristine and just the screenplay text. Over here you can do in fact, even in Notebook, if I switch to Notebook, every scene has its own notes that I can capture. I'm going to talk a bit about this later. You can see that there is this place called attachment. So into attachment, you can drag and drop your scene images and video and audio and whatever else you want.
Okay.
Just not in the screenplay text area. That's all.
Yeah, but in screenplay, you don't even, there's no mark or anything that there is a reference for this.
For images,
Images, links, videos, whatever. Just
yeah. So what we do have is, it's a good thing that you asked this question. So what I can do is I can say move the notebook into structure tab so that the notebook shows up here, right?
okay.
So as I change my scene, can you see the corresponding notebook page for the scene kind of got pulled up?
Yeah.
So I can keep adding my attachments and videos and everything here. So as I keep moving up and down, it's right here for me to refer.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. That's good enough, I think.
Yeah.
So great. And Mr. Sunil Reddy has a very important question saying,
Yes.
is the software free?
Yes, the software is free. This entire app is free. The source code of the app is also available on GitHub. So if you are interested in those kind of things, you can pull the source code as well. The product itself is free. Yes.
So how does Prashant intend to make money out of Scribe then?
That's a good question. So here's the honest to God answer about that, right? When the pandemic lockdowns began, we had to shut down our Teriflix cinema hall. And one is I was interested to build a screenwriting app. The second one is I wanted something, and most of our customers were filmmakers. So I wanted to put together something so that filmmakers can continue to be using something from Teriflix. And the background intent is that by the time the lockdown got lifted, they don't forget who we are. That was the intent. So the whole thing was free. And 18 months later, there's so much of action happening here. So we are now trying to figure out a commercial model around this, but not around the writing app itself, but what can we do once the writing is done for the pre-production and the production space and so on. So that's where we're trying to see if we can put together a commercial model.
Okay, I think that sounds good. Maybe we'll take, we want to continue and maybe we'll take a couple of more questions.
Sure. Good. So we'll do that. Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to show was, all right. So I want to, let's start with an MP thing. A lot of our writers, they prefer to do 3-act structuring. They don't like to place boxes all over the place and so on. They like to do regular three acts. And initially I said you have to create your scenes here and then you have to add them here and all of that. The benefit of something like that is very obvious. So let's say, I think we have all watched Vantage Point. Uh, this is the story where the opening scene is a very inciting incident. The president's motorcade is attacked, and there's an attack on the life of the president of the United States. And then what they do is they explain the entire series of events that led to the president's, to the attack on the motorcade from one of the characters' point of view, and then they
Right.
revisit the inciting incident, and then they explain the exact same event from another
Different
character's
point.
point of view. And they keep doing this.
Also ಉಳಿದವರು ಕಂಡಂತೆ.
Also ಉಳಿದವರು ಕಂಡಂತೆ. It's a very famous Rashomon loops
Yeah.
kind of a structure. So we have the inciting incident, and let's say all of these are from one character's point of view. So I'm going to add these next, right? And now I want to revisit the scene. So I'm going to drag and drop this on the screenplay once again. So the moment I do that, can you see the loop is just very clearly visible here,
Yeah.
right? And now I'm going to add the next set of scenes, and then I'm going to revisit this scene once again. Of course, these guys need to be in another color so that they kind of make sense for us track wise, right? And then finally, let's say I have a climax. I'm going to put together a climax here, and this is, let's say, purple in color. So as you can see, I can see the loops on my structure canvas, right?
Yeah.
And the exact same scene is happening 3 times. And while writing screenplays, I don't have to copy paste these things 3 times because it's a scene based construct. So whatever I type here shows up in the other places as well. Can you see, as I type, it's showing up here as well. So if there are scenes that I want to literally revisit multiple times, then I can do that. And it's pretty easy to visualize this. And of course, in structure canvas, I can stack these index cards on top of each other, right? Because they all belong to one track. And that way, this whole thing looks a little neat. So when it comes to visualizing these kind of story structures, it becomes very easy. But there is a whole lot of writers who don't work this way. They write these diagrams on a piece of paper, but when they do index carding, they don't want to do this. So for them, they prefer to do the regular 3-act thing, right?
Correct.
So what we have is like this. So you don't have to create scenes here and pull them into the timeline all the time. You can simply go on creating new scenes by clicking on this button. So this one adds a scene to structure and also to timeline in one shot. So I'm going to add, let's say, 5 of these scenes. And I'm not just adding some random boxes. In my head, I have this idea that I'm going to have roughly about 5 situations in Act 1. And then I'm going to add an act break. This is my Act 2. And then I'm going to have another roughly, let's say, 8 situations in Act 2, because Act 2 is usually bigger. And then I have my act break, and then I have, so this gives me a regular 3-act, design as well. So I have my acts placed in rows. This is what you would do on a beat board if you had a whiteboard. You post these post-it notes on your whiteboard while you're designing your stories.
Yeah.
Now, while you do that, let's say you want to additionally tag your index cards with story elements. Like, let's say you're a fan of Save the Cat, and you want to tag this and say, okay, this is my opening image, right? And this is my setup. I'm going to tag them, right? And this is my break into 2. This is where I'm going to break into the second act, right? Now, these cards are showing me, the tag names as well. There's an opening image index card. So that way I know that while I'm designing my story structure, what's the mold in which I'm pouring my story into, right? So over here, I have to pour only that kind of story that helps set up the before world of my protagonist. I cannot at this point, write the finale, for example, right? And if I just click on this button and say, show me the groups based on Save the Cat, it's going to say, okay, this is an opening image. These two
Mm.
scenes are set up. Somewhere here is break into two and like that. Let's say, and Act two is where your B story begins. So I can
Mm.
go here and tag my B story, and
Mm.
then all of my trailer moments. The place where I play with the concept of my film is going to be in Fun and Games here. I'm going to say Fun and Games. So this way, I'm able to visually see what kind of story should be placed in which part of my structure. So this is another way. This is I know I read I met with one of the writers from a noted film studio here. Uh, my first meeting with him, I demonstrated whatever version of Scryte we had back then. He said, "Oh, very interesting," and he said, "Read the book, Save the Cat before you come to the next meeting." So I got
Yeah.
the book and I read it. I was like, "Oh, so this is one of the ways in which they visualize stories," and it's a very good revelation. A lot of apps they do have this. However, what they don't have is this thing where your structure remains in sync with your screenplay. In a lot of
Mm.
apps, you design your story structure on a large canvas, but the act of writing the screenplay to match the structure is a manual process. So if you
Right.
change the
Right.
structure, the screenplay remains exactly.
Correct.
But here it's
Correct.
not the case. If you change it, the screenplay as well changes,
Yeah.
right? So
No, because
that's
see, I was thinking one of the things which when most of these commercial films do is have these comedy elements as separate scenes, right?
yes.
They are nowhere connected to the narration. They are nowhere connected. It's just a one line out of the blue because they have introduced that character somewhere as a friend of the hero or a heroine or whatever, and they have their own track. They
Yeah.
have they do this small a gig of 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and they come and it suddenly blanks out and the other story continues. So
Mm.
how do you do those? You just keep a separate track like that, and the director can add it wherever he wants in the timeline.
Good question. So if I want to just have scenes that are raw materials,
Yeah.
I just create them as scenes.
Okay.
And you
Okay.
see, it says it's unused scenes. And now these
Right.
scenes are individual scenes. They are not yet in the timeline. So when you
Hmm.
export your screenplay to PDF or file, they don't show up
Okay.
in the
Okay.
final output. They just remain as unused scenes. You can give it a nice heading and say, okay, possible comedy scene,
Yeah. Okay.
right? And then you
Hmm.
keep it in the structure somewhere. You can pull it into your screenplay if you want at any point of time. So I can add this
Hmm.
and say, I'm going to pull this in here,
Hmm.
right? So then it becomes part of my story. Otherwise, and now you notice that this guy is now in this is the lone index card in unused scenes. Now
Hmm.
these arrows are telling me where it is present, and this looks ugly. I can
Yeah.
simply click on this button here, so that this is called a beatboard layout. So this will ensure that your index cards are always placed in act-wise rows, and
Hmm.
all the unused scenes will show up outside this box at the end. So
Understood.
if I add another scene after this,
Hmm.
it's going to show up in that play in that row and not
Hmm.
random somewhere.
Hmm.
So, but I think another deeper question in what you asked is this: how do I weed out elements that are unnecessary for my film, and how
Hmm.
do I know that there is a hole, there's a gap in my script that I need to fill in? Now
Right.
that's something that so we're building this new module. I don't have a demo to show that as yet. As a software developer, we are perpetually scared of software crashing on the day of demo. So I'm not going to show anything that is that's just code for which I wrote in the afternoon. So I'm going to show something that I know will work.
I will still say go ahead and show it because it's okay. I mean, we
No,
are
I don't have it on this machine. It's on my dev machine, not this one.
okay. No problem.
But what we're planning to build is a timeline where you will be see this kind of structure visualization is mostly index cardish or at best the shape of the story. What we
Hmm.
want to do is provide another kind of visualization of your story structure through
Hmm.
something called as an advanced timeline view. So in
Hmm.
advanced timeline view, you'll be able to visualize the emotional graph of characters across the scenes,
Okay.
the story threads that move across the scenes. So when you look at all of these emotional graphs and story threads, as they move across your screenplay, when you visually notice unnecessary crisscrosses, you know that there's a problem,
Yeah.
right? So that's something that we are putting together. Hopefully, in a few months, we should have some early betas ready to share. But that's something that will help look for plot holes visually as well.
Excellent. Actually, I would like to bring in a question from Mikael from Svensson. He's from Sweden. He's a very good friend. His wife Helena is a dear friend. She's a producer, and he's asking a question: if it's easy to convert to other languages like Swedish. And
Oh,
Prashant, I'm telling you, this guy is important because he promotes a lot of international films in Sweden. So,
right.
Mikael, thank you for joining us and asking this question.
Thanks, Mikhail. Thanks for asking that question. Very good question, though. Uh, the underlying text engine that we use is Unicode based, so we can, from a uh, coding perspective, support every language that we can. So what we want to do is to, at some point, provide mechanisms so that we can allow the user to pick their set of 10 languages or 5 languages or whatever that they want to make use of. So that way you can have, so because there are quite a few people from the Arabic countries who are asking, are Arabic languages, the right to left languages supported? So what we want to do is, currently, when we started off this product development, what was in mind was Indian languages. But we're kind of putting together frameworks in the code so that you can select any subset of languages as long as we can handle them in Unicode. Yes. So eventually we will definitely have that.
Excellent. So I'll connect you offline also. So if you're really interested, Mikhail, I'm sure Prashant will work on it, and we have a market in Sweden because I'm sure he can really promote it there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Would love to know more. And this is brilliant. Thanks for asking this question. And I want to say that I think I sat on the driver's seat of the product for exactly 3 months. That's between April and let's say June of last year. After that, early adopters have been suggesting what they need in the product, and that's so. And uh, it's wonderful when writers actually ask what they need in the product, so that it's easy to kind of focus on the important things. So we'll definitely have the ability to have non-Indian languages pretty soon.
Excellent. So yeah, I think we have a couple of more minutes. You have anything else to add, or we can take a couple of questions before we?
Let's take questions. I think this is because, like you said, this is very useful as an interactive thing.
Yeah.
I just put together if you go to our website and go to help,
Yeah.
this is a video that was put together. So my
Great.
original idea was I'm going to play this video, but Anand said, "Hey, put the video. Let's talk live." So this is a 1 hour video. If you want a quick tour of all of the features in Scribe, so you can take a look at that.
Excellent.
But let's have questions.
Yeah. Let's ask. We know this asking. Can we create storyboards? I think you already answered it, but maybe
Yes.
he not joined in late, so you can just quickly say
Yes.
that.
Yes. Thanks, Vinod, for asking the question, but not yet. But that's one of the things on our agenda. We want to put a storyboarding layer on top of this. Yes. Short division, storyboarding, and at some point we want to also add a few cloud tools to make scheduling and all of those things easy as well. While we're answering questions, I'm going to load one screenplay so that I can show two things later. Yes, let's take another question if there's there.
Is the software available for in app for mobiles?
Not yet.
Do people
Yes.
write on mobiles? Is my question.
I have that question too, but it turns out that a lot of people do. And
Wow, that's interesting.
mobile, tablets, because it offers a kind of mobility and freedom to use anywhere that desktops and laptops don't. So a lot of people do. And we want to have a mobile version of the app and a tablet version of the app. The reason why we are not putting the foot down on the gas pedal of those directions yet is because as of now, Scryte is still in beta, and we want to get out of beta before we head into mobile and tablets, because by then we will know for sure what the product features look like. And it costs a little more time, effort, and money in order for us to, like, for example, on Windows and on Mac, I don't have to release the app through the App Store infrastructure. But the
Right.
moment we go into mobile phones, we have to release through the mobile App Store
Yeah.
infrastructure. So we want to be sure before we go to do all of those things. Uh, I want to quickly show one thing. So, I'll show one report. The rest you can look on the video. We have a whole bunch of really useful pre-production reports. Now, that's one of the benefits you get when you write screenplays in this format. So, for example, if I want all of the dialogues of Carolyn, so I can just say generate. It will give me a PDF file. I can open it.
Oh, that's nice. So you can just send
All
those to
of
the character. Okay.
Yes, right. And then there was this obvious question. They said, well, what if the actor who's playing Carolyn wants to get context, not just the dialogues? They want to know what against what is Carolyn supposed to say all of these dialogues. So for that, we have this other thing called as character screenplay. What this does is it extracts entire scenes in which character Carolyn is present, but it's going to highlight the dialogues in yellow and keep everything else as is. So this way, Carolyn has more. The actor has more awareness. We also
Right.
have an interesting thing called a scene character matrix. What this does is it will give you a simple table, scenes on on the rows, and then all of the characters on the column. It'll simply tell you who is where,
Mhm.
right? And this is until a few of our early adopters who are ads said, can you give that to us in excel format,
Mhm.
right? And then you'll have some people who'll say, no, I want it in open office format, and then they'll say, no, I want something in numbers format. We said, okay, we'll just do csv. So we give a csv, and then you can load this and then do a lot of what happened. Yeah, yeah. So this is a CSV, right?
Okay.
It gives a spreadsheet of who, what is the scene
Brilliant.
type, location, time, and then who is present where. And lot of ADs are Excel geeks. Did you know that? I mean, it was wonderful. Yeah. Some of the financial experts don't know as much Excel as the ADs do. So they do a lot of pivot tables and a whole lot of stuff, and so many things they extract from this one. So if you're an AD and God bless you, you
Mhm.
can use this
Yeah.
as well. This is one of the things that you can. So like this, we have a whole lot of reports which help with pre-production.
Excellent. Excellent. No, this is really good, man. This is really, really nice what you have done. And I think there's one last question we can take before.
Sure.
Oh, no, this was already answered, but yeah, you can go ahead, Sanjeev.
Sanjeev, can an account be used by multiple users just in case one of our other writers need to understand or change something in the script? Good question. So first thing is we don't need you to sign up an account with us. We do want to add that at some point so that we can provide some goodies. But as of now, it's a standalone desktop app. So you just download it, you go to our website, you go to the download section, and it's a local app. So any number of people can download and install this. Now, if you want to share your screenplay with multiple people, simply put the file on a Dropbox or a Google Drive or a OneDrive thing, and then share the folder with your collaborators. When any one of the writers has opened the file, that file will be locked and others will be not allowed to open that file. So it's sequential access at this point. We are trying to put together a real-time collaborative editing layer as well. But as of now, a lot of writers are using it, on OneDrive and Google Drive. We did not want to reinvent the wheel when it comes to cloud storage. See, OneDrive does a great job. Google Drive does a great job. Why reinvent it? We do put a watermark on the title page by default on the pages, PDF pages, but we're not going to ask some money so that we allow you to uncheck this box, right? So that's not our intention. So this is free in all sense. When we have collaborative editing, people will have simultaneous collaboration possible, but right now sequential is already possible.
Mm. Prashant, the other question I had was when it is a standalone, how are you saying that when somebody is open, you can't open? I got lost.
So very good question. So for example, let me just go ahead and open uh, this one. Can you see this is saying this is opened by another user,
Okay.
right? Now, what that basically means is this: there is a log file.
Okay.
The presence of the log file denotes that somebody else has opened it. Now you have to just say, okay, so somebody is using it, so I'm not going to edit this. I can actually go ahead and delete the log file if I want, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then forcefully, make my way into it. But the app has some checks and balances for this.
Great. Yeah, I think it was really interesting to hear so much, because even though I downloaded it and used it a little bit, but I did not know so many features which were available, and I'm really looking forward to see how Sprite will grow, and how what are the changes you will bring in. So we really, from the festival part of the festival, we really sorry.
No. Yeah.
And we would like to wish you all the best, and what you have done is something really great, and I hope many of the filmmakers start using it, because it's a wonderful tool. Most important, it's free. You're not charging anything, but I'm sure something will come up so that it has a benefit to you too. Any last words you want to share with our viewers?
Thank you for making time, coming here, taking a look at this. Start using your Scrite Write screenplays. Let us know. We would love to know your unique problems. Post your comments, feedback, questions, anything on the forum. We would love to hear from you. Keep making movies. I think it's so important for mental health. I think my sanity is mostly because of the sheer spread of films that I was able to watch during the pandemic. So thank you for being who you are. Really, really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Prashant, and guys. We had a great session, and thank you for that. Please, of course, the festival is still on till the September 5th, and I hope you guys watch all the movies, and you have a great time. We have a couple of more sessions coming up, for masterclasses and discussions coming up. Also today, I think it's already started. We have a clubhouse today evening for the inclusion competition section filmmakers. So please join in after this. So thank you very much. Good night. Thank you, Prashant. You take care.
Thank you, Anand. Thanks for everything. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.